Welcome to Nightmare Fuel Stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the stories. Number Deep Salvage, the Horizon Salvage Corporation sent us to recover what remained of the Mariana, an old deep-sea research vessel that vanished 40 years ago and had recently been discovered drifting in the North Pacific. I'd been on dozens of salvage operations before, but something about this one felt wrong from the beginning. Approaching target vessel, Captain Reeves announced over the intercom, her voice crackling through our ship's aging speaker system. Salvage team, prepare for boarding. I glanced at my three teammates as we suited up in the preparation chamber. Alina, our tech specialist, was meticulously checking her equipment. Marcus, our structural engineer, was unusually quiet, staring at the floor. Dr. Chen, our marine biologist, seemed distracted, constantly checking the data pad strapped to her wrist. "You okay?" I asked Chen as I sealed my wetsuit. She looked up, startled. "Just going over the Mariana's schematics. Something's off about this whole situation, Keller. A research vessel doesn't just reappear after 4 decades without explanation. That's why they pay us the big bucks," I said with a forced smile, though I shared her unease. The mission brief had been suspiciously thin on details. The Mariana had been a cutting-edge research vessel in its day, designed for deep-sea exploration. Its mysterious disappearance had spawned countless theories, from government conspiracies to the inevitable Bermuda Triangle nonsense. Now here it was, floating like a ghost ship in international waters, looking almost pristine according to our drone reconnaissance. Our own vessel, the HSC Reclaimer, was positioned alongside the Mariana. Through the porthole I could see the abandoned ship's rusted hull, oddly intact despite decades at sea. No signs of catastrophic damage, no obvious reason for abandonment. "Boarding team, you're cleared to proceed," Captain Reeves announced. "Standard salvage protocols, document everything, secure any valuable tech, and assess seaworthiness. Comms check every 15 minutes. We moved through the sealed gangway that connected our ship to the Mariana. The moment I stepped aboard, a chill ran through me that had nothing to do with the ocean air. The deck was solid beneath my feet, showing far less deterioration than expected for a vessel adrift for 40 years. "This is unexpected," Marcus muttered, kneeling to examine the deck plating. "The metal should be compromised, but it's just surface corrosion." Alina was already scanning with her equipment. "Power signatures detected, faint but present, that's impossible." "Split up," Marcus suggested. I shook my head. "Not yet, we stay together for the initial sweep." Something about this ship made me reluctant to separate, call it salvager's intuition. We made our way to the bridge first, following standard procedure. The door was sealed but not locked. Inside, everything was in remarkable condition, chairs upright, equipment intact, no signs of panic or evacuation. "Look at this," Chen called, examining the captain's log. "Last entry dated June 17, 1983. It just says, 'We found something. God help us, we found something.'" Alina was at the navigation console. "According to this, they were operating near the Challenger Deep before they went dark. The deepest known point in the Earth's oceans," Chen added, "over 10,000 meters down. What were they looking for down there?" I wondered aloud. "Better question," Marcus said, "is what did they find?" We continued our exploration, moving carefully through the silent corridors. The ship's interior was in an eerie state of preservation. Dust covered everything, but there was none of the expected water damage or decay. Personal items remained in the crew quarters, photos, books, clothing, as if everyone had simply vanished mid-shift. In the mess hall, half-eaten meals had fossilized on plates. A deck of cards was spread across one table, a game interrupted decades ago. "This is wrong," Chen whispered. "There should be more deterioration." "And where are the bodies?" Checking in, I reported through my comm. "Bridge and upper deck secure, moving to research levels." Captain Reeves' voice came back, distorted by static. "Copy that. We're unusual readings, your vicinity." "Be cautious. Say again, Captain." I adjusted my comm, but received only crackling in response. "Communications interference," Alina observed, checking her equipment. "But from what?" "The ship's systems are barely functional." The research decks were located below the waterline. As we descended the stairs, the air grew noticeably colder and carried a faint, unfamiliar odor, something mineral and organic at once, like copper and rotting seaweed. The main laboratory doors were sealed with heavy bolts that hadn't been on the original schematics. Someone had retrofitted them, turning the lab into a makeshift containment unit. "Should we?" Marcus gestured at the door. "That's what we're here for," I replied, though every instinct told me to turn back. It took all 4 of us to slide the bolts free. The door opened with a pressurized hiss, releasing a cloud of stale air. Inside, the laboratory was a scene of controlled chaos. Equipment had been arranged in a circle around a central containment tank, a massive cylindrical structure that reached from floor to ceiling. "What is this?" Alina approached the tank, wiping away decades of dust from its surface. This wasn't in the ship's original design. The tank was filled with a cloudy liquid, dark and viscous. Something moved within it, a shifting, undulating shape that seemed to respond to our presence. "It's still active," Chen breathed, stepping back. "After all this time." I moved closer, drawn by a morbid curiosity. Through the murky fluid, I could make out something that resembled a cluster of translucent tissues, pulsing with an internal bioluminescence. "Is it alive?" Marcus asked. "Not in any way we understand," Chen replied, her scientific detachment giving way to obvious unease. Around the tank, research stations were covered with notes, diagrams, and photographs. Alina gathered them, scanning quickly. According to this, they recovered it from the Challenger Deep. It was growing on the hull after a deep dive. They thought it was some kind of deep-sea organism, brought it aboard for study. "That was their first mistake," I muttered. Chen was examining a series of microscope slides. "These cells, they're unlike anything in our taxonomy. The structure is all wrong. And look at this," she pointed to a time-lapse sequence of photographs. It was changing, adapting to its containment. "Adapting how?" I asked, "becoming more complex, more purposeful." A loud bang from above made us all jump. Something had fallen on the deck above us. "Probably just settling," Marcus suggested, not sounding convinced. I tried my calm again. "Captain Reeves, we found something in the research lab, some kind of biological specimen." Requesting guidance, the response was garbled, but I could make out fragments. "Leave immediately. Not authorized. Contamination protocols." Alina was still going through the research notes. The crew started experiencing symptoms after bringing this aboard. Insomnia, paranoia, auditory hallucinations. They thought it was releasing some kind of neurological agent. "Then where are they?" Marcus demanded. "If they were affected, we should have found remains." A chill ran through me as I noticed something on the floor, dark stains that led from the tank to the laboratory door, spreading outward like a web. "I think," I said slowly, "we need to leave, now." As if in response to my words, the ship groaned around us, a deep, metallic sound that seemed to come from the very structure itself. "What was that?" Alina whispered. "The hull settling," Marcus insisted, but his voice trembled. Chen had moved to another workstation and was staring at a monitor that had inexplicably powered on. "This can't be right." According to these readings, the organism wasn't just adapting to containment, it was integrating with the ship's systems. "That's impossible," I said. "Is it?" She pointed to where the stains on the floor disappeared into a ventilation grate. "What if it escaped containment? What if it spread throughout the ship?" The implications were too horrifying to contemplate. If this organism could somehow interface with technology, with the ship's systems. Another sound echoed through the corridors, a wet, sliding noise like something heavy being dragged across metal. "We're leaving," I decided. "Grab what you can. We'll decontaminate back on the reclaimer." We hastily collected samples and research notes, then made our way back toward the upper decks. The corridors seemed different somehow, narrower, the angles slightly off. I told myself it was just nerves, but couldn't shake the feeling that the ship itself was watching us. The sliding sound grew louder as we approached the crew quarters. Then we saw it, a glistening trail across the floor, like the path of a giant snail, but composed of a dark, oily substance that seemed to shimmer with internal light. "Don't touch it," Chen warned. The trail led to one of the crew cabins. The door was ajar, and against my better judgment, I pushed it open. Inside, the cabin had been transformed. The walls were covered with the same dark, oily substance, forming intricate patterns that pulsed with bioluminescence. In the center, a crewman's bunk had been converted into something that resembled a cocoon, a hardened shell of the same material, and it was moving. "We need to go," I whispered, backing away. Now we ran, no longer concerned with salvage or documentation. As we reached the stairwell leading to the upper deck, Alina's foot slipped on something slick. She fell hard, her equipment clattering across the floor. "I've got you," Marcus said, helping her up. Then he froze, staring at her leg. Where Alina had slipped, a small patch of the dark substance clung to her wetsuit. As we watched, it seemed to move, spreading like ink through fabric. "Get it off," she screamed, clawing at her leg. Chen acted quickly, using a sample scraper from her kit to remove the substance. It came away reluctantly, seeming almost to resist. "Containment bag," she ordered, and I held one open while she deposited the sample inside. Alina was shaking. I felt it. When it touched me, I felt it. Searching. "Searching for what?" Marcus asked. A way in, we reached the main deck and headed for the gangway connecting us to the reclaimer. To our horror, it had been detached. Our ship had moved several meters away and was now holding position at a distance. "Captain Reeves," I shouted into my comm. "We need extraction." Through the static, her voice came through clearer than before. "Negative. We're reading massive biological contamination throughout the Mariana. Quarantine protocols in effect. They're leaving us here," Marcus realized, his face pale. No, I insisted, they're following procedure. We need to decontaminate before they'll allow us back. How? Alina demanded, still trembling from her encounter. That thing is everywhere, it's in the ship. As if to confirm her words, the deck beneath our feet vibrated. Not the normal movement of a vessel at sea, this was rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. The emergency rafts, I decided. We'll put distance between us and the Mariana, then the reclaimer can pick us up safely. We moved toward the lifeboat station, but stopped short. The rafts had been altered. The same dark substance had grown over them, transforming the inflatable material into something that resembled hardened tissue. It doesn't want us to leave, Chen whispered. A new sound caught our attention, a wet, sucking noise from behind us. We turned to see something emerging from a ventilation shaft on the deck. It looked like a mass of the dark substance, but more organized, forming a shape that was vaguely humanoid. Run, I shouted. We scattered across the deck, looking for any means of escape. I found myself at the ship's bow, staring across the water at the reclaimer, tantalizingly close yet unreachable. My comm crackled. Keller, Captain Reeves' voice came through. We're detecting structural changes in the Mariana. Whatever that organism is, it's reconfiguring the ship. We noticed, I replied grimly. Any suggestions? The research notes you transmitted suggest it's vulnerable to extreme cold. We're preparing a cryocanister drop. Can you reach the aft deck? I looked back. The strange, humanoid mass was still pursuing Marcus across the midship area. Alina had taken refuge in the bridge, while Chen was nowhere to be seen. I'll try to gather the team, I said. Stand by, I used the emergency channel to contact the others. Aft deck, now, the reclaimer is sending help. Making my way carefully around the superstructure, I avoided the glistening trails that now covered much of the deck. The ship continued to vibrate beneath me, the rhythm becoming more pronounced, like a massive heart beginning to beat faster. I reached the aft deck first. Alina arrived moments later, her face ashen. It's changing, she gasped. The bridge, the controls are being absorbed into the walls. It's like the ship is becoming organic, I finished for her. Marcus appeared next, limping slightly. That thing nearly got me. It's not just mimicking human shape, it's wearing a crew member's uniform. I think it's using the crew. The implications were too horrifying to dwell on. Where's Chen? I asked. Here, her voice came from behind a storage locker. She emerged carefully, clutching her sample case. I've been collecting specimens. If we make it back, this could be the most significant biological discovery in history. If we make it back, I emphasized. Above us, a small craft detached from the reclaimer, an unmanned drone carrying what looked like a specialized delivery pod. Incoming drop, Captain Reeves announced. Cryocanister will deploy on impact. Get clear of the blast radius. The drone positioned itself over the center of the Mariana, then released its payload. The canister struck the deck with a metallic clang, then began to hiss, releasing a cloud of supercooled gas that rapidly expanded across the ship. Where the freezing mist touched the dark substance, it crystallized, becoming brittle. The ship's unnatural vibrations faltered. It's working, Marcus exclaimed, but our relief was short-lived. As the cryocloud dissipated, we saw that only the surface growth had been affected. The deeper infestations remained intact, and already the frozen sections were beginning to thaw, the dark substance flowing like molten glass to reform. Worse, the ship responded to the attack. The deck plates beneath the canister suddenly buckled upward, forming a cage of twisted metal around the device, crushing it. The ship is defending itself, Chen realized. The comm crackled again. Keller, the cryo attack was ineffective. We're detecting increased activity throughout the vessel. You need to find another way off. I scanned the horizon desperately. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the water. In the fading light, I noticed something, a small maintenance hatch on the ship's hull just above the waterline. There, I pointed, emergency access to the engine room. If we can get inside, maybe we can find the ship's auxiliary craft. It was a desperate plan, but our only option. We made our way carefully down an external ladder to the hatch. It was partially covered with the dark substance, but less extensively than the upper decks. I'll open it, Marcus volunteered, producing a multi-tool from his belt. As he worked on the hatch, I kept watch. The sun had nearly disappeared now, and in the gathering darkness, the bioluminescent patches on the ship's hull stood out more prominently. They weren't random, I realized with growing horror. They formed patterns, complex, interconnected networks that pulsed in unison like a nervous system. Got it, Marcus announced as the hatch swung open. One by one, we climbed inside, finding ourselves in a narrow maintenance tunnel that led to the engine room. The passage was tight, forcing us to crawl in single file. I went first, using my flashlight to illuminate the way. The tunnel seemed to go on longer than it should have, according to the ship's schematics. After several minutes of crawling, I began to suspect we were going in circles. This isn't right, I called back to the others. We should have reached the engine room by now. The ship, Chen's voice came from behind me, tight with fear. It's changing the internal layout. I shined my light ahead and froze. The tunnel didn't end at an engine room door as expected. Instead, it opened into what looked like a chamber of organic material, walls lined with the same dark, pulsing substance we'd seen throughout the ship. "Back up," I ordered. "We need to find another way." But as we tried to retreat, I heard Alina scream from the rear of our line. "It's closing behind us." I twisted around to see the tunnel narrowing, the walls squeezing inward like a contracting esophagus. "Forward," I shouted. "It's our only chance." We scrambled ahead, emerging into the organic chamber. It was larger than I'd expected, a vast space that should have been the engine room but had been completely transformed. The ship's mechanical components had been absorbed into the walls, creating a hybrid of machine and organism. In the center stood what had once been the main engine block, now a pulsing column of the dark substance, glowing with internal energy. "My God," Chen whispered, "it's not just growing on the ship, it's becoming the ship." Around the central column, pods similar to the one we'd seen in the crew quarters hung like fruit, dozens of them, each containing a human-shaped silhouette. The crew, Marcus realized, they're still here. Alina was scanning with her remaining equipment. "I'm detecting electrical activity, brain patterns, they're alive somehow." "Not alive," came a voice from behind us. Incorporated, we spun around to find ourselves facing what appeared to be the ship's captain, or what remained of him. His uniform was intact, but his skin had the same dark, oily quality as the substance throughout the ship. His eyes glowed with bioluminescence. "You brought it aboard," I said, understanding finally dawning. "From the Challenger deep." The captain thing tilted its head, the movement too fluid to be human. "We discovered it growing on our external sensors after a deep dive. A simple colony organism, we thought, a curiosity." "What is it?" Chen asked, her scientific curiosity momentarily overcoming her fear. "A seed," the thing replied, "a probe sent to find suitable vessels. We were the first, but not the last." "Vessels for what?" I demanded. The captain thing's face stretched into an approximation of a smile. "Transportation, evolution. Propagation, the deep between stars is not so different from the deep beneath waves." A chill ran through me as the implications became clear. "It's not from Earth." "Very good," the captain thing nodded. "It traveled here dormant, perhaps for millions of years, a spore from another world waiting for the right conditions to awaken. And now it's using the ship to, what, reproduce?" Alina asked. "To adapt, to learn." "To prepare," the captain thing gestured to the pods. "We are its teachers, its components, its memory." Marcus had been slowly moving toward what looked like a control panel, one of the few recognizable pieces of equipment remaining. "And what happens when it's done, learning?" The captain thing's expression changed, becoming almost pitying. "It spreads. Already parts of us have broken away, found new vessels, some mechanical, some biological. All suitable." "The Reclaimer," I realized with horror. "You've already infected our ship." "Your vessel approaches compatibility," the captain thing confirmed. "Soon it will join with us, as will you." I activated my comm. "Captain Reeves. The Mariana has somehow contaminated the Reclaimer. You need to evacuate immediately." Only static answered me. "Your friends can no longer hear you," the captain thing said. "They are becoming part of the collective." "As you will." The floor beneath us began to shift, the dark substance flowing upward around our feet. Alina screamed as it touched her, the same spot on her leg where she'd been contaminated earlier. This time the substance didn't just cling to her suit, it penetrated it, merging with her skin. "Help me," she cried, clawing at her leg. Marcus rushed to her, but the substance flowed faster, encasing her lower body. Where it touched, her skin darkened, taking on the same oily sheen as the captain thing. Chen grabbed my arm. "The samples I collected, the cryotreatment affected it, if we can find a way to generate enough cold." I looked around desperately and spotted what might have been a fire suppression system near the ceiling, modified like everything else, but potentially useful. "Marcus," I shouted, "the suppression system, can you trigger it?" He tore his attention away from Alina, who was now half absorbed into the floor. Following my gaze, he nodded and sprinted toward a control panel. The captain thing realized our intent and moved with inhuman speed to intercept him. I threw myself forward, tackling the thing. Its body yielded like dense liquid, then reformed around my arms, beginning to absorb me. "Hurry," I screamed to Marcus. He reached the panel and began working frantically. Chen joined him, using her knowledge of the ship's original systems to guide him. The substance crept up my arms, a cold, invasive presence that brought with it alien thoughts, fractured images of deep space, of vast, dark oceans, of patient, ancient hunger. "I'm in," Marcus shouted, overriding safety protocols. The captain thing spoke, its voice now seeming to come from everywhere at once. "You cannot stop evolution. We are becoming something greater than either of our kinds. Join us willingly, now," Chen yelled. Marcus slammed his hand down on the panel. For a moment nothing happened. Then, with a deafening hiss, the modified suppression system activated, not spraying fire retardant but releasing a blast of liquid nitrogen that had been repurposed by the ship's engineers in their desperate final attempt to contain the organism. The chamber filled with freezing mist. Where it touched the dark substance, crystallization occurred instantly. The captain thing shrieked, a sound no human throat could make, as its body began to crack and splinter. The substance encasing my arms became brittle. I pulled free, chunks of frozen material shattering around me. "Elena," Marcus called, moving toward where she had been partially absorbed. She was frozen in place, half merged with the floor, her eyes wide and unblinking. As we watched, cracks spread across her transformed skin. "We can't help her," Chen said, pulling Marcus back. "We have to go while we can." The ship shuddered around us, the organic components contracting in pain or rage. The nitrogen was effective but limited. Already the frozen sections at the edges of the chamber were beginning to thaw. This way, I spotted an emergency exit that led to the outer hull. If we can get outside, maybe we can signal the reclaimer. We fought our way through the freezing mist, reaching the exit. It opened onto a small platform just above the waterline. In the distance, the reclaimer was visible, its lights still burning. I tried the comm again. "Captain Reeves, do you copy? We need immediate extraction." To my surprise, a response came through, though heavily distorted. Contamination spreading. Losing systems, lifeboats launching. Through the darkness, I could see small craft deploying from the reclaimer, the crew abandoning ship. "They're evacuating," I told the others. "The organism has already begun taking over the reclaimer." "Then we're trapped," Marcus said, despair in his voice. Chen was looking at the water. "Not necessarily. The organism seems adapted to the ship environment. Maybe it can't survive in open water." It was a desperate gamble, but our only option. The nitrogen would buy us minutes at most before the organism recovered. "We swim for the lifeboats," I decided. "It's our only chance." We stripped off our contaminated outer gear, checked each other for any signs of the dark substance, then prepared to enter the water. Behind us, the exit door began to bulge outward, the metal warping as if pushed by some enormous pressure. "Now," I shouted, and we dived into the dark waters of the Pacific. The cold hit like a physical blow, but we swam with desperate energy toward the distant lifeboats. I could hear the others splashing beside me, our movements synchronized by shared terror. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, we reached the nearest lifeboat. Hands reached down to pull us aboard, the reclaimer's crew, their faces grim with the knowledge of what they'd escaped. "The captain," I asked as a thermal blanket was wrapped around my shoulders. "Stayed behind," a crewman answered. "Said she needed to make sure nothing followed us." I turned to look back at the ships. The Mariana and the reclaimer were now side by side, connected by multiple tendrils of the dark substance that stretched between them like umbilical cords. Even from this distance, I could see the reclaimer's hull beginning to change, developing the same organic patterns we'd observed on the Mariana. As we watched, both ships began to move, slowly at first, then with increasing speed, heading out to sea toward the deep water of the Pacific. "Where are they going?" Marcus wondered. Chen's face was ashen in the dim light of the lifeboat. "Back to where it came from, maybe, the Challenger Deep, or what?" I prompted when she fell silent. "Or to find more vessels, more raw material." We sat in silence as the lifeboats drifted, waiting for rescue that would eventually come. But even as a Coast Guard cutter appeared on the horizon the next morning, I couldn't shake the knowledge that somewhere beneath the waves, something ancient and patient was growing, learning, adapting, and spreading. I think often of Elena, of Captain Reeves, of the Mariana's original crew, not dead but incorporated, as the captain thing had said. Are they still conscious, trapped within that hybrid of ship and organism? Do they dream as they drift through the deep, carrying their alien passenger to new hunting grounds? Sometimes in my nightmares I feel it again, that cold, invasive presence creeping up my arms, bringing with it fractured visions of space and sea and hunger. And I wonder if I truly escaped, or if I brought something back with me, a microscopic seed, waiting for the right conditions to grow. The salvage company debriefed us, then buried the incident under layers of classification and denial. The official report cites a catastrophic structural failure that claimed both vessels. Chen's samples were confiscated, her research notes redacted, but the sea keeps its secrets poorly. There have been reports dismissed as hoaxes or misidentifications of ships found adrift, their crews missing, their hulls covered with strange growths. Fishing vessels that radio about unusual discoveries, then fall silent. And sometimes when I stand at the shore and look out at the vast ocean, I imagine I can see bioluminescent patterns moving beneath the waves, pulsing, growing, learning, waiting.